found out that our daughter had passed from the hotel. The fiance did not reach out to us at all.
Y'all, this isn't just another tragic headline. This is the kind of story that doesn't sit right no matter how many times you hear it. A luxury trip, a dream proposal, a rising influencer living what looked like a perfect life. And then, within hours, everything goes dark. Because what started as a fairy tale in Zanzibar ended in a death that investigators are now being forced to take a second look at. Ashlee Jenae, young, successful, in love, posting smiles, celebrating her future, telling the world she never wanted to wake up from this moment. But behind those perfect clips and curated posts, something was already cracking. An argument, intense, so serious that hotel staff had to separate the couple into different rooms. And then silence. Hours later, Ashlee is found unconscious. No warning, no explanation, no second chance. The official story? Self-harm. Case closed. But here's where everything starts to fall apart. Her family says that version doesn't make sense. Not even close. They say she was happy, excited, planning her future, talking about what comes next. And then comes the detail that changes everything. 11 hours. That's how long it took before her family was informed. 11 hours where no one knows exactly what happened, who was called, what was said, or what was hidden. And now, the FBI is stepping in. New evidence, broken timelines, financial pressure, a relationship that may not have been what it seemed. So the question isn't just what happened to Ashlee Jenae. The real question is, was this a tragedy or something far more calculated?
My money is still on the husband, and not because he's white, but because this was her birthday trip. She went and got a new wig, got her lashes did, nails did, toes did, picked out outfits, and created an itinerary for her birthday. She had no idea that this man was going to propose to her in such a beautiful place like Africa. She would have been ecstatic. It's my birthday and my man is proposing to me? Hell yeah. I do not feel like anywhere in her mind it would have been, it's my birthday, my man is here, he didn't propose to me. This is a great time to just end it all.
Baby, maturing is knowing that a white man can change my life with his money, and he can take it from me with his money. And then he can go get a motherfucking lawyer with his money and get away with that shit.
The story doesn't begin with the death. It begins with an image that looked too perfect to question. Ashlee Jenae was building a life that thousands of people watched every day. Travel clips, luxury settings, curated moments that made everything feel effortless. She wasn't just posting content, she was selling a vision, a life where everything lined up exactly the way it was supposed to. Then, Joe McCann entered the picture, a crypto CEO with the kind of profile that fits seamlessly into that world: wealth, confidence, access. The kind of man who doesn't just participate in luxury, he moves inside it like it's normal. When the two of them appeared together, the narrative almost wrote itself. Power couple, fast-moving romance, the kind of story social media thrives on. And then came Zanzibar.
I spoke to the family of Ashlee Robinson. She's the 31-year-old influencer who was on vacation with her fiance celebrating her birthday. He actually proposed on the trip. But something crazy happened. She was having a good time. Her family said she was very excited to be there, shared pictures with the family, FaceTimed them when she was proposed to. But they released a statement saying that Ashlee was found unconscious in her villa and was rushed to a local hospital where her death was confirmed hours later.
Destination designed for escape. Private villas, safari experiences, ocean views that look unreal even in high definition. It wasn't just a trip, it was a statement. The kind of setting where people go to mark something permanent. That's exactly what happened. A proposal, captured, shared, celebrated. Ashlee's words painted the moment clearly. She described it like a dream she never wanted to wake up from. Everything aligned, timing, location, emotion. It looked like the beginning of something stable, something real. But perfection has a way of hiding pressure, because behind the scenes, something wasn't holding. There were cracks forming that no one online could see, the kind of tension that doesn't show up in photos, but changes everything once it breaks. According to reports, what followed that proposal wasn't calm or celebration. It was conflict, an argument intense enough to disrupt the entire environment around them. Not a small disagreement, not something you brush off and move past. This was serious enough enough that hotel staff had to step in and physically separate them into different rooms. That detail changes the entire timeline. Hours earlier, they were celebrating an engagement. Now they were being kept apart. Two completely different realities unfolding within the same night. And this is where the story shifts from unusual to deeply unsettling, because after that separation, everything becomes unclear. There are no shared moments, no updates, no visible attempts to reconnect, just distance.
She was starting the next chapter of her life. She called us and FaceTimed us to share with us her travel.
Ashlee's mother says she never would have expected that less than a week later, her daughter would be dead. On April 8th, she says Ashlee called saying she and her fiance got into an argument and were moved to separate rooms. The next day, she received another call, this time from her fiance.
He told me that Ashlee did something to herself and that she was being taken to the hospital. I said, what happened when? And he told me it had been 11 hours prior.
Hours later, the luxury resort the couple was staying at called saying that Ashlee passed.
Then comes the discovery. Ashlee is found inside her room, unresponsive, no buildup, no warning, no gradual decline, just a sudden, irreversible collapse. Emergency response follows, hospital transport, attempts to stabilize. But the outcome doesn't change. She never makes it back. And almost immediately, a narrative forms around what happened. Local authorities move toward a conclusion, a single explanation that attempts to close the case before it fully opens. Self-harm, simple, direct, final. But the simplicity of that answer is exactly what begins to raise questions, because nothing about the hours leading up to that moment feels simple. Not the argument, not the separation, not the sudden shift from celebration to crisis. And when a story changes direction that fast, people start looking closer. Not at the ending, at everything that happened just before it.
Alright, hear me out. And maybe this is just me, but I just thought about it because I was driving on my way home. I'd really be ready to cut a nigga off over smoke. Like the littlest thing, I'd just be turned off, like It was mad people in the regular lane, and the express lane was clear as I'm so zooming through that. Pass it, feet. As a grown man, in 2023, living in the state of Florida, specifically Dade County, Broward County, doing without a sun pass. Like honestly, you want to just vibe in traffic. Vibe. Could take you 15 minutes to get somewhere. You want to chill out for the next 45 minutes sitting in a regular lane for what? It ain't gonna work with me, baby. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. I ain't gonna lie. I'm talking about, yo, babe, get over into the express lanes faster, Nah, like I ain't finna do all that. Drive over them.
What happens next is where the official story starts to feel incomplete. Local authorities moved quickly. Their conclusion came with confidence. Self-harm, a closed narrative, a tragic but simple explanation, no extended investigation, no prolonged uncertainty, just a case that, on paper, made sense to them. But outside that report, the reaction was very different. Ashlee's family didn't accept it. They weren't looking at headlines or reports. They were looking at the person they knew, someone who had just celebrated a proposal, someone who had been actively planning her future. Messages, conversations, expectations, none of it aligned with the idea that everything ended by her own choice. And when personal reality collides with an official conclusion, doubt begins to grow. That doubt intensified when one specific detail surfaced: 11 hours. That's the gap between the moment Ashlee was found and the moment her family was informed. Not minutes, not a short delay, 11 full hours where information didn't reach the people who should have heard it first. Time like that doesn't disappear quietly. It creates space where questions live. What was happening during those hours? Who was contacted first? What conversations took place behind closed doors? What decisions were made before the family even knew something was wrong? No clear answers, and that silence becomes louder than any explanation. As the timeline started being examined more closely, inconsistencies began to appear. Not dramatic contradictions, but small gaps that don't sit comfortably when placed side by side. Moments that should connect but don't fully align. That's when the situation shifted again, because this wasn't just a local case anymore. Federal attention began to circle around it. The involvement of the FBI changed the tone instantly. Cases don't reach that level without reason. It suggests that what initially looks straightforward may have layers that require deeper examination. elimination. And once that door opens, everything connected to the situation starts getting reevaluated. The relationship itself came under focus. From the outside, it looked polished. Public posts, visible affection, a fast-moving connection that seemed natural in a world built on image. But privately, reports suggested tension. Not constant conflict, but enough friction to raise concern when placed next to the events that followed. Then came the financial angle. Information began surfacing about Joe McCann's business situation, a crypto fund reportedly taking heavy losses, investors under pressure, a financial environment that was far from stable. When money enters a narrative like this, the stakes change. Because financial pressure doesn't just affect business decisions, it affects behavior. And then another layer appears, claims about a possible life insurance policy connected to Ashlee, not confirmed, not fully detailed, but enough to add another question to an already complicated situation. At this point, the story is no longer moving in a straight line. It branches. Relationship tension, financial instability, timeline gaps, delayed communication, federal interest. Each element on its own might not be enough to shift the narrative, but together they create a pattern that's difficult to ignore, because when multiple unanswered questions start pointing in the same direction, the story stops feeling like a closed case and starts looking like something that hasn't been fully uncovered yet. By this point, the story is no longer about a single moment. It's about everything that doesn't line up, because once people started looking beyond the official version, more details began surfacing. Details that don't directly prove anything, but refuse to sit quietly inside a simple explanation. One of those details comes from Ashlee's final known actions. Shortly before everything went silent, she reportedly asked hotel staff for a phone charger. It sounds small, almost insignificant, but timing changes everything. If someone is about to disconnect from the world, they don't usually prepare to reconnect. They don't reach out for power. They don't try to keep a device alive. That moment suggests something else entirely, an intention to call, to message, to record, to reach someone, and whatever that intention was, it never happened, because after that request, the sequence cuts off. No confirmed communication, no final message, just a locked room and a timeline that stops making sense. Then comes another gap: security footage. A luxury resort is built on surveillance. Entrances, hallways, pathways, movement is usually recorded. Not for curiosity, but for protection. To establish who was where and when. Yet in this case, no clear footage has been publicly presented. No complete visual timeline. No confirmation of movements that could either support or challenge the official narrative. And when expected evidence is missing, attention shifts from what is known to what isn't being shown. At the same time, the online conversation began taking its own direction. Speculation grew, claims surfaced. Some people pushed controversial theories about Ashlee's past, suggesting she may have been involved in high-end companion work. Others immediately pushed back, calling those claims false and damaging, an attempt to shift focus away from the real questions. Because in situations like this, narratives compete. Some clarify, others distract, and separating the two becomes part of the challenge. Then another layer appears. Joe McCann's past. Reports and allegations begin circulating about previous relationships, claims of aggression, mentions of financial strain, even suggestions that his personal life may not have been fully transparent. None of it fully verified in the public domain, but enough to shape perception, because patterns matter, and when multiple threads start pointing toward instability, personal, financial, emotional, they add weight to the questions already surrounding the case. This is where the situation reaches its most uncomfortable point, not because there are clear answers, but because there aren't. A woman celebrates what should have been one of the happiest moments of her life, a proposal, a future, a beginning. Within hours, she is gone. An official explanation is given, but the timeline fractures under scrutiny, a delay that doesn't make sense, a final action that suggests intention, not withdrawal. Missing clarity where clarity should exist. And now, a federal presence that signals the story may not be finished, because when a case refuses to settle, when details continue to surface instead of fade, it doesn't disappear. It evolves, and the more it evolves, the harder it becomes to accept that everything has already been explained. This is where the story stops being a closed case and starts becoming a question no one can ignore, because the deeper you look, the less it feels like a simple tragedy. The timeline doesn't settle, the details don't line up cleanly, and the silence around key moments only makes the noise louder. A proposal that looked perfect, an argument that changed everything, a sudden death, and 11 hours that still have no clear explanation. That gap alone is enough to keep this story alive, because time like that doesn't just disappear, it gets filled with decisions, calls, movements, things that either explain everything or change everything. Now add federal attention to the mix. When the FBI steps in, it means something didn't sit right. It means the surface story wasn't enough. It means there are angles still being examined, details still being questioned, and a timeline that may not be as simple as it first appeared. And that's exactly why people aren't letting this go, because this isn't just about what happened inside that room. It's about what happened before it and what may have happened after. It's about pressure, relationships, money, and a version of events that some believe is missing pieces. Right now, the truth is still moving, and when the truth is still moving, the story isn't over. So the real question isn't whether this case is closed. The real question is, what hasn't been revealed yet? Because if new evidence keeps surfacing, if timelines keep shifting, if more voices start speaking, then what comes next won't just rewrite this story. It will expose it.